Out front now, Democratic Senator Cory Booker. He is supporting Kamala Harris for president. Senator, nice to have you with us this evening. So looking at some of this new CNN polling out today for Georgia and North Carolina, Donald Trump has an edge among likely voters when it comes to bringing the kind of change the country needs, 46% versus 41% for the vice president, and also holds a slim lead within the margin of error on which candidate shares their vision for the country. We're looking at 44% versus 41 or 42 for the vice president. She talks a lot about looking forward and about her vision for the future. That poll, though, was just done within the last week. Does it concern you at all about how it is perhaps not registering? And are you confident she could turn that around in the next few days?
I mean, gosh, I'm almost dizzy from the poller coaster every day, seeing different polls. It's just too much. And you and I both know statistically they go from a set of modeling where who they think is going to turn out. There's nothing usual about this election as I crisscross the country. I am seeing what is the makings of a very different kind of turnout model where there's going to be a lot more participation in a lot of different groups than we normally expect.
Put that in terms of turnout and what you expect to see on Tuesday when it comes to numbers for Kamala Harris.
Yeah, look, we know she's going to win the popular vote. I think that's almost been conceded by the other side. Most Americans are going to vote for her. But strategically, there's about 7 states that she's really working on the ground to get the vote out. And I visited pretty much all of them and have seen just things that I really haven't seen since President Obama ran in his first time. I get people coming up to me that break down in tears just with their sense of joy or their sense of fear about what's at stake. And so I think people understand what's at stake, and that's actually moving turnout. And I tell you what, these last few days, I've heard from a lot of leaders in the Latino community who weren't as engaged, who are now downright ticked off. And I said, as Popeye says, I've had all I can stand, and I can't stand no more.
Well, speaking of Latino voters, what we saw this week, there's been so much made, of course, about support among not just Latino voters, but also among Black voters. This week, actually just today, former President Obama weighing in. So he spoke on Reverend Al Sharpton's radio show just a short time ago. I want to play a little bit of what he had to say.
You have in Donald Trump somebody who consistently has shown disregard to people who are not like him. I don't have to tell you, this is somebody who has made a career out of demeaning and talking about and treating people of color in ways that indicate he does not think they necessarily are full members of the American community.
You know, the vice president said earlier this week on the Breakfast Club, she doesn't see any problem when it comes to support among Black men. I know you're not a fan of polling, but I'm going to throw a little bit more data at you because we do have it out new today. In averaging what we see in Georgia and North Carolina in this new CNN poll, support for Black voters, likely voters, for Kamala Harris is averaging about 65 percentage points, so above Donald Trump. But in 2020, for Joe Biden, that number was 80 percentage points. Does any of that concern you about a shift?
Well, again, you and I both know polls and numbers. It really doesn't talk about what the denominator is. How big is that 65%? When the turnout goes up, you're talking a lot more people voting. And these last days, something has really shifted. I think that he really touched a longstanding ache and hurt that our communities have for being talked down to, demeaned, and degraded. It was almost like a reminder. Remember who this guy was? You remember the kind of things he's said, going back to the Central Park Five, going back to birtherism, which he led against Barack Obama. Do you really trust this guy to have your back when he has done so many things repeatedly, all the way up until this Madison Square Garden, consistently that has kicked you in the gut, looked down upon you, and done things that seem so overtly racist? So I really trust that the most loyal voting base the Democratic Party has ever had is in the Black community. But right now, I think he's really given people cause to pause and to feel more of a sense of urgency to defend our communities from people who look down at us with such bigoted ways.
You released a video with Senator Jon Tester, who may be the most vulnerable Democrat at this point seeking re-election. I'm going to play a little bit of that.
This guy will fight you. Oh.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say maybe stuntman is not the best day job. But in all seriousness, when you look at that state, right?
Yeah.
And when we look at the state of affairs, when it comes to the Senate and holding on to control, how concerned are you about that uphill climb right now for Democrats?
I will always bet on Tester. The reality is his state is about the size, population-wise, of the county I grew up here in New Jersey, one of our 21 counties. And people know John Tester. Look, my chief of staff is in Montana right now on the ground. They're closing the numbers on their official polling that you see out there. But more than that, they're bumping into so many Republicans that just know him, trust him, and believe in him. And what Republicans, I think, have they made a mistake. They've been from Wisconsin, the person they have running against Tammy Baldwin, to Montana. What they have is they bring these multi-millionaires who are better known in other states that kind of plop in and try to run as these outsiders. John Tester is real salt of the earth, and the great thing about his reputation in the Senate is indeed he will. When it comes to defending Montana, he doesn't care if he's fighting a Democrat or Republican. He fights for Montana. So if anybody can win in that state because of their authentically independent spirit, it's John Tester.
I am going to ask you one quick question. You said he's catching up in the polling, I believe you said, in the state. Does that mean that polling's okay?
No, it's not.
Okay.
I mean, he has told me he doesn't give a damn. And he too has run it against an opponent that has said the most vile things about Native Americans and others. And people are responding to that. They want somebody that loves all of Montana, not just certain parts.
Senator Cory Booker, good to have you with us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.